Welcome to the Devil's Lake Driving Range. Today I will be taking you through the different stations that you will use to practice and will be evaluated on. Obey the road markings and stop signs just like you normally would. You would stay within the solid yellow lines, and the broken yellow lines are used to separate lanes of traffic. There is no order to the stations. You can work on whatever station is open or whatever station is giving you the most difficulty. However, there is just one car per station. The first station that I'm going to show you is a lane changing station. These two lanes will always run this way. Those two lanes will always run that way. First of all, I'm going to show you a left to right lane change. And when you make a lane change, remember the acronym SMOGS. S-M-O-G-S. S stands for signal. You're going to signal that you are going to be making a lane change. M stands for mirrors. You're going to check your mirrors to make sure no one is in your lane. O stands for over-the-shoulder glance. You're going to give it an over-the-shoulder glance before moving over into that lane. The reason for an over-the-shoulder glance is just to make sure no one is in your blind spots. G stands for go, if it's clear. Then S stands for signal off, if your signal doesn't cancel off automatically. First of all, I'm going to signal. I'm going to check my mirrors. I'm going to look over my shoulder to make sure my lane is clear. I'm going to go if it's clear, and then signal off. Next, I will be showing you a right to left lane change. For my right to left lane change, I'm going to signal. I'm going to check my mirrors. I'm going to look over my left shoulder to see that my left lane is clear. If it's clear, I'm going to go and then signal off. The next station that I'm going to show you is a turnabout. When I enter this station, I'm going to straddle the broken yellow lines and approach the cone up ahead. When I approach the cone, I want to ease up to it where I'm about a foot away without hitting it and where it's centered with my vehicle. If you have difficulty judging distances, my advice is to put it in park, unbuckle, and go and take a look. Next, you are going to be backing to the cone on your right with the yardstick sticking out of it. You can see that there is a solid yellow line going around that cone with the yardstick. That represents a driveway that you are going to be backing into. I'm going to slowly go in reverse, and when my bumper is about even with the yellow line extended of that driveway, that's my cue that I can start turning hand over hand to come in at a square angle toward my target. I'm going to be using my backup camera. I'm going to be using the rear view mirror. Plus, I'm going to be looking over my shoulder to keep my eye on the target. As I approach the target, I'm just going to make gradual adjustments with the steering wheel. If I want my back end to go to the left, I just turn the wheel that way. If I want my back end to go to the right, I just turn the wheel that way. So as I approach my target, okay, I am just making gradual adjustments with the steering wheel. Again, you should be about a foot away from your target and keep it centered. Be sure to always signal when you are exiting and entering a station. Always obeying stop signs, yielding to traffic. Also, work on your complete stops and your head checks. If I'm making a right, I look to my left for oncoming traffic. I look the direction I'm going to go to my right, and then I give it one final glance again for oncoming traffic. This station is also a turnabout, but instead of backing to our right, we would be backing to our left. Again, I'm going to straddle the broken yellow lines, approach the cone, and try to be about a foot away, as well as centered with my vehicle. Now backing toward my target, I'm going to go straight back until my bumper is about even with that yellow line extended. And again, that's my cue. I can start turning hand over hand to get in square. I'm using the backup camera to help me, as well as my rear view mirror, in addition to looking over my shoulder. And again, I'm just making gradual adjustments with the steering wheel as I approach my target. I want to be about a foot away and keep the cone centered with the back of my vehicle. The next station that I will demonstrate for you is the 3-point turnabout. You can see the outline of a box surrounded by cones. In that yellow box surrounded by cones, I will be turning around just by going forward, backward, and then forward again. I'm going to enter on the right side, and then I'm going to point the front end of my vehicle toward the left side, left corner of that box without hitting the cone. Next, I'm going to shift into reverse, leave my foot on the brake, crank the wheel to my right. Then, when I release the brake nice and slow, I can turn a lot sharper in a shorter space. I gain an advantage that way. And of course, I'm just going to go back to where I'm not going to hit the cone behind me. Then I'm going to crank the wheel the other way with my foot on the brake, shift into drive. Then when I release the brake, I can just exit out the other side of the box. For the 3-point turnabout, I can turn around in the boxed in area just by going forward, back, and then forward. I am now approaching a 4-way stop. You can tell it's a 4-way stop by the backs of stop signs. As you approach the 4-way stop, be thinking about who has the right of way and who would yield to whom. If I got here first, I would have the right of way. If I got here at the same time as someone on my right, they would have the right of way. They're on my right-hand side. If someone got here on my left at the same time as I did, I would have the right of way since I'm on their right. So when you approach the 4-way stop, be thinking about who got where first and who would yield to whom. Okay. This station is a parallel parking station. The farthest cone represents the left edge of the back bumper of the front vehicle. The cone closest to us represents the middle of the front bumper of the rear vehicle, and we'd be parking in the space between. I'm going to signal that I'm going to be taking that parking spot. I want to set my vehicle about a foot or two away from the vehicle that I'm pulling up alongside so I don't sideswipe it or take off a mirror. Plus, I want to give myself a little cushion when I back into that spot. I'm going to pull forward until my rear bumper is about even with their rear bumper, in this case, the cone. Now, I'm going to shift into reverse. I'm going to slowly back and turn, and I can turn fairly sharp to get the back end of my vehicle into that parking space. As a reference point, when my side mirror crosses their rear bumper, that's just my cue that I can slowly start turning my vehicle the other way. I'm going to turn the wheel to my left. What happens then is that's going to draw my back tire away from the curb, and also now it's going to draw the front of my vehicle into that parking space. When I see that the front end of my vehicle is going to clear their back end, now I can really hold the steering wheel over to my left. Now that's going to really draw the front end of my vehicle into that parking space. When I feel it's parallel, okay, I'm going to quit. I don't want to go past parallel. And I do not want to hit the vehicle behind me. Now I'm just going to center it between the two cones. And that would be like centering it between vehicles. I would not want to box anyone in ahead of me, and I would not want to box anyone in behind me. Ideally, you want to be about a foot away from the curb. If you're not sure if your vehicle is centered between the cones, if you're parallel, or if you're about a foot away from the curb, I suggest putting it in park, unbuckling, and then taking a look. When you exit your parking space, first of all, you're going to back up a little bit without hitting the car behind you, so you have enough room to exit forward. When you exit out of your parallel parking space, again, remember the acronym SMOGS. S, I'm going to signal that I'm going to leave this parking space. M, I'm going to check my mirrors to make sure this lane is open. O, I'm going to give it an over-the-shoulder glance just to make sure no one is in my blind spot. G, I'm going to go if it's clear. Plus, I want to make sure I do not hit the vehicle in front of me when I exit. And my signal canceled off. The next station is the figure 8. You can see the outline of an 8. So I would want to go through the 8 without crossing over the solid yellow lines and without knocking over a cone. First of all, I am going to drive through the figure 8 forward. And the reason I'm driving through it forward is because then I'm going to back through it. Now my rear end is already on the path that I'm going to use to back through it. When I back through the figure 8, okay, all I'm doing is basically riding the brake. I'm not giving it much gas. I'm just using hand over hand steering, looking at my mirrors, looking over my shoulder. Then, when the back end of my vehicle is about in the middle of the 8, now I'm going to look over my other shoulder Then I'm going to proceed to go hand over hand with the steering wheel the other way. And again, I'm just basically riding the brake. I'm giving it gas if needed. And again, when the middle of my vehicle is about in the middle of the figure eight, that's my cue to go hand over hand and start turning the other way. And today, it's a windy day, and the wind did blow down that cone. I did not hit it. I'm going to back until I get back to my original starting position. Now my front end of my vehicle, I'm able to exit out where I entered. When I exit, I would yield for any traffic. Then I would exit out if no one is coming. The stop sign is for me, and I would have to yield for anyone else coming out of the parallel parking station. If it's clear, I'm going to go. Ahead of me are railroad tracks with railroad markings. I'm going to get in the habit of looking and listening as I approach train tracks. I'm going to be looking both ways. If a train were coming, I'd have enough time to slow down and stop. Again, at the stop sign, I'm looking to my left for oncoming traffic. I'm going to look the direction I'm going to go. Then I'm going to give it one final glance for oncoming traffic before I turn. This is a perpendicular parking space at a right angle. So to get into that parking space, I'm going to signal. I'm going to swing out a little wide, lane position 2, staying in my lane. Then I'm going to come in, and now I'm at a square angle, approaching that cone without running it over. When I back out, I want to back into my closest lane of traffic because that's my safest lane of traffic. So I will be backing to my right because that's my closest lane of traffic and the safest. So I can turn fairly sharp when I back out of this parking spot. And again, I want to stay within my own lane of traffic and not cross over into someone else's lane of traffic. The next parking spot is an angle parking spot. To get in between those two cones, again, I'm going to be signaling. I'm going to change to lane position 2, stay out a little bit wider. Now I have a better angle to get in between the cones. This is like driving into a driveway, then into a garage. And again, I want to center my vehicle with the cone and be about a foot away. Now when I back up, I want to be yielding to traffic coming behind me. I'm going to be backing between those two cones, and I'm going to be backing to my right again because that's the safest lane of traffic. I'm going to try to go more toward my right cone because the front end of your vehicle has a tendency to swing out a little bit wider when backing up. So to compensate for that, I'm going to get a little bit closer to that right cone. When my bumper clears that right cone, now I can turn fairly sharp, and the front end of my vehicle is going to avoid the cone on the left. I'm still within my lane of traffic, and I'm going to pull forward. Next, we have a one-way. And you can tell it's a one-way by the way the stop sign is facing. The stop sign is facing us, so you know you're going down the right way of a one-way. To the left is another parking spot that can be used to practice parking. I'm going to pull in between the two cones. I'm going to pull up to the cone, center it with my vehicle about a foot away. Now when I back up, I'm going to want to back to my left so my vehicle is facing the right way going down a one-way. When I approach this stop sign, I want to stay back a little bit from the stop sign. I do not want to be out too far when I'm in a lane of traffic. Plus, I really want to be cautious at this stop sign because there's a sharp right-hand turn to my left. So I want to make sure there isn't any traffic coming from my left side. I'm going to stop. Okay, I'm going to look for oncoming traffic, and then I'm going to proceed. I'm going to be taking a right. A station that I'm going to evaluate you on is called the offset, where I'll be going down the one-way, and then I'm going to proceed to go down another one-way. When my front bumper clears this cone, I'm going to signal left, and I'm going to begin to turn. However, first I'd yield for any traffic coming this way. If it's clear, I'm going to go. I'm going to pull in between these two cones and go down another one-way. And again, I can tell that I'm going down the correct way of the one-way by the way the stop sign is facing. Over on my right, those two cones represent a road hazard, such as a dead deer, potholes. I'd want to avoid the hazard. Doing so, I would just change my lane position, slow down, and avoid the hazard. I'm going to exit out the station, obey the stop sign. Also be aware of any dangers that the course might represent. The sidewalk juts out here. Please do not jump the curb. Go around this curb nice and slow so you can stay in your lane, and be aware where the sidewalk juts out here too. The lane is a little bit narrower, so just slow down, stay in your lane. This is also a somewhat dangerous spot because it's a tight right-hand turn. So again, you want to stay in your lane, avoid any traffic coming from the other way, and be aware of any cars parked to your right. Other than working on the stations, just pay attention to the road markings, to the stop signs, and everything else. Work on your signaling, your complete stops, and anything else that you would do with your normal driving. I could even take a left here. Of course, before I would turn, I'd yield for oncoming traffic. I would stay in my lane. Now, if I were to go left, I'd want to slide into the left turn lane. If I'm going right or straight, I would stay in this lane. I'm going to be going straight, obey the stop sign, yield for traffic, and then proceed. Again, you can see your turn lanes. If I were to take a right, I'd stay in the right-hand turn lane. If I were to take a left, now I would slide into the left-hand turn lane. I'd obey the stop sign and yield for traffic. and that is the Devil's Lake driving range. Safe driving to everyone.